Hello everyone, it's Michelle here from Michelle Fleur Art, and today we're going to be painting a watercolour whale. I'm going to take you through the whole process from start to finish, and you can paint along with me if you like. For materials, you'll need some watercolour brushes, some white ink, some blue watercolour paints, some hot pressed watercolour paper, a pencil and an eraser. Here's the outline of a whale that I've drawn on the paper. If you're not a comfortable drawer, feel free to just pause the video and trace this outline from the screen, and then we can get started. Okay, it's time to dig in. So here I am using the colour Phthalo Turquoise, and I'm putting a bit into my palette. And I'm going to put a little bit of the white ink into my palette too, so that it's ready to go when I want to use it. This is Art Spectrum white ink, but any white ink should do. So I'm going to add a lot of water to the paint, to the blue paint. Lots and lots of water. And I'm going to start my first layer of the painting. So I paint in layers, and for this whale we'll be doing 2 layers. Painting in layers just gives you nice rich colours and a lot of depth. So I'm just going to divide the whale into sections, and right now I'm going to lay down the paint on this first section. And I'm going to work pretty quickly because the hot pressed paper, on the hot pressed paper, the paint tends to dry quickly. So we want to work quite fast. Make sure you've got a lot of water mixed with the pigment so that it stays wet, and you can kind of push it along the paper. Keep pushing the water so you don't get those hard edges. I'm just going to keep pushing that paint into this top section. Here I'm just dropping some more pigment into the watery paint that I've already put down. I was thinking that it was far too light. But it is better to work from light to dark with watercolours. I just knew that I was only doing 2 layers, so I wanted to get some rich colour down from the beginning. I'm just painting around that eye now, which is a little bit fiddly, but that's okay. I'm still working as fast as I can and trying to keep the edges of where the paint is quite wet so I can continue to push it along when I get to that bit. So I'll just fill in the rest of the top now with the blue, with the turquoise. I'm just conscious of trying to get really clean, neat edges from the beginning, so I'm spending a little bit of time trying to get the edges quite smooth. I realised a bit later that I wasn't meant to paint the underside of the tail blue, but I did, and that's okay. It should have been white. But these things happen. We can pretend that it's the reflection of the water on the white side of the tail. I'm just adding some more water to this just to smooth it out a bit, and I'm going to be dropping some ink into this blue. It needs to be wet, and I'll show you why. It's so the ink can bloom. So I'm just dropping the ink in and it's spreading. And this is going to give me texture on the whale. We'll be painting another layer over this after it dries. And these blooms will provide texture and depth and interest to the body of the whale, so it won't be so flat and one-dimensional. So what you want to do is just pick up that ink with your brush. Don't be skimpy. Get a nice amount and drop it into the wet paint. There is a point where it can be too wet and a point where it can be too dry. So you kind of have to find the happy place. I would suggest maybe practicing on a separate piece of paper before you do a finished piece. It's all just practice and trial and error. Okay, now I'm starting the bottom half of the whale. Just putting this blue turquoise down here, and I'm leaving a slight gap for the mouth line. Just a very fine kind of separation between the top of the whale and the bottom of the whale. We will be painting over that at a later stage, but if you were not to leave that line, the paint would run into the top half and it might start to look a bit messy. If that happens, I mean, it's really no big deal. You can work with that and just paint the line in after. But if you can, it's nice to try and leave that little line without paint. We want the belly of the whale to be white or quite pale, so I'm trying to leave that and not add too much blue there. we're getting to the end of layer 1 now, and we're going to stop and leave that to dry until it's fully dry to touch. So just touch it with your fingers and make sure that it is very, very dry. And then we'll come back and do layer 2. Okay, I left that for about half an hour actually. It took a while to dry, and I'm about to start the second layer. And for this layer, I'm going to be using Prussian blue. So I'm using Winsor & Newton paints. There will be a description of the materials I'm using in the description of this video. So if you're wondering what I'm using, yeah, just check down there. I'm adding lots of water to the Prussian blue, making it nice and translucent. And then I'm going to start to layer it over the whale, over what I've already done. Now you want to work fast and you don't want to labour on your brush strokes because you don't want to pick up the paint from underneath. So you do want quite a watery pigment, and then you're going to glide it over the top. You're kind of pushing the water. You're not using the brush like you would in other forms of painting. You really want the paint to flow over the top of what you've already done. And the ink will kind of resist the paint, but that's okay. That's what's giving us the effect that we want. So you can see that beautiful depth that we're starting to get. And the white ink blooms are kind of glowing through this new layer of paint. We're going to continue to add paint in the bottom part of the whale. Oops, I had a little drop fall off the brush. So now we're going to have bubbles around the whale as well. Watercolours are like that. You kind of just have to work with them, and you know, it's hard to keep the paper clean sometimes, as you just saw, but all good, all good. We'll work with that. So yeah, I'm just continuing to add the blue to the bottom part of the whale. a bit unhappy with the belly because the blue leaked onto the area that I wanted to remain quite pale. So I decided to drop some ink into the belly area as well. You can use the ink in really interesting ways, and I've done this quite a few times. It just gives you that nice white belly that humpback whales have. Okay, I'm nearly finished this off and we're going to leave this layer to dry. I'm back quite a while later, and now here comes the fun part, adding all the details and bringing the whale to life. I love this part the most. First I'm going to paint that eye in so the whale can have a bit of personality. I always think that finishing the eye is what really brings the picture to life. I'm just painting the eyelid in with one layer of the turquoise, and then I'm going to use a colour called Paynes Grey to paint the eyeball. Oops, it seems like I've skipped the eyeball for now. I must be planning to do that later. I just picked up a brush called a rigger, which is fantastic for painting lines. And I'm dropping that in the ink, and I'm going to paint the mouth in now. So using that gap that we created between the top and the bottom half of the whale, we'll just guide the white ink through that gap to create a more defined line. Now I'm adding detail with the ink through adding dots on the nose. So humpback whales have lots of scars and interesting features on their skin, and these are really fun to add into the whale. I use the end of my brush to add dots, and then I do some sweeping lines to suggest scars on the whale. And yeah, I really love this process. You can see what I've done there. Now I'm just adding in the lines on its belly. Okay, now we're going to add the eyeball in. This is the colour I was referring to earlier. It's called Paynes Grey. It's not a black, but it's a really nice dark colour. And I'm going to use that for the eyeball and for a few other little features. Just some little dots and maybe some lines, just to add a little more interest and depth. Okay, I think the whale might be finished, and now we're going to work on those little bubbles. I actually go to town here and add in quite a few more, but you know, why not? And there you have it, the finished whale. Well, that was fun. And I love this little whale. It's beautiful. I love the blues. And it's got a sweet little eye and lots of gorgeous things happening on its skin. So you can see all the details here. It's really, really fun to paint. And I encourage you to give it a go if you're interested. I'd love to see what you come up with. And thank you for watching. Please give me a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Cheers guys. Bye.